UFP, the United Federation of Podcasts.
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast on the United Federation of Podcasts. I'm your host, Amy Nelson. Patrick is away this week. We're sort of playing tag, and I'm it. So I have brought on the wonderful and amazing Zach Moore from Franchise Fatigue and our executive producer of UFP. Zach, welcome, and thank you so much.
Greetings and felicitations, Amy. I'm happy to be on All Good Things. Obviously, having you guys on the UFP network is a big get for us. So I was definitely looking forward to being a guest on All Good Things. And this is the first of many guest appearances, I hope.
Oh, definitely. With our travel and works, we're just going to be rotating you guys in. We've had Ken on and definitely wanted to have you on. So glad you could join me today.
Absolutely. And, having come from Standard Orbit on Trek FM the last 4 years of my life, for the most part, we had to just talk about the original series. We jumped over the wall, as Ken used to say, quite often. And so it's fun to now have this podcast. And I know you feel the same. We're going to talk about all good things about Star Trek. Of course, as, we were talking a little bit off microphone before we started recording. Apparently, though, we're only going to be talking about the new Star Trek shows that are going to come out once a week for the rest of our lives on CBS All Access, because we are deep in to Star Trek Picard right now.
I know. And what a thing to complain about, right?
Too much Star Trek.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, we did have a lot of crossover shows that were just great with Standard Orbit and Earl Grey, because we just love podcasting with you. And yes, we stole all of your ideas for episodes.
Well, the feeling is mutual, so.
All right. Well, you can find the network on Twitter and Facebook at UFP Earth. And if you'd like to send us an email, you can message the network at contact@ufp.earth. So, Zach, as I don't get any emails, have we gotten any emails yet?
I'm not in charge of the emails.
Oh, my goodness.
That might be a Tony or Brandon question.
Okay.
So, sorry to not have any answers for you, but I'm sure we have a whole lot that say nothing but good things about y'all.
Well, listeners, please send us an email so we can work out the kinks in this system here. Always with a new show, there's stuff that we're trying to figure out.
Well, beginning of 2020 was like a soft relaunch of UFP, right? We got new shows, we got reactivated shows, we got more consistent shows coming out from everybody. So we're still we're in our shakedown cruise right now at the beginning of 2020. So we'll have a nice assembly line of how these things are supposed to work coming soon. But hey, the feedback alone on the social media has been tremendous from everybody. So it's great to see everybody jumping on and wanting to talk some Star Trek with All Good Things.
Yes, very good. Well, today we are going to talk about Star Trek Picard. This is episode 5, Stardust City Rag. Zach, do you know anything about this title? I mean, is this supposed to be like ragtime? Is that what it is?
I believe it's some kind of song reference. That's all I know. I think I heard somewhere or read somewhere somebody was like, this was David Bowie or, Bob Dylan or maybe I honestly don't know. Because the place is not called Stardust City.
Right. Free Cloud. Yeah.
I just don't know either. It's in the classic Star Trek tradition of why is it titled this? I don't know. So.
Well, the only reason why I associated with ragtime, because when we go down to Free Cloud, the lady on the piano is playing a ragtime. Who's that famous ragtime dude? Piano. I totally
Cole
forgot
House Walker.
His name.
That's the character. But
no, he did The Entertainer.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, listeners, you're screaming at me. I know you know. But anyways, that's why I was thinking Ragtime, because she was playing, and I used to play his music. Okay. Anyways, sorry, listeners. But yeah, Stardust City Rag. And so Zach, tell me your initial thoughts, because when we messaged, you're like, you're going to have to wait and see. So I'm curious.
Okay, so, and I tweeted this out after I watched the episode, and I said, you know what, if you told me that there was going to be an episode of Star Trek Picard with no scenes on the Borg Cube or any of that storyline, I would have been like, that's going to be my favorite episode. I can't wait. Well, quite the opposite, because unfortunately, this is my least favorite episode of the series so far.
Why is that?
Well, let me count the ways.
It's like I'm podcasting with Pat.
So, see, I'm just, Patrick's gone. I'm here. I'm filling the role in this conversation. And, okay, so, they've been building up to Bruce Maddox this whole time. And we get Bruce Maddox. And, of course, they recast Bruce Maddox. That's its own conversation, I guess. But all that aside, they kill him off, like, immediately. I'm like, oh, okay. Because in the series premiere, there's all these ideas like, oh, well, there was a theory that you could get a positron and clone data. And I'm like, okay, fine. All right, I will go with you on this. You have a lot of questions that you need to answer, but I'm willing to wait and see how you answer them. And they find Bruce Maddox. And the only thing that he tells them is, Daja's sister is on the Borg Cube. And we already knew that. So it's like, you gave me no new information that I needed from you. And now he's dead. And I guess we're going to have to keep waiting, because Alison Pill's character has more knowledge than he did, and that's why she killed him. And hopefully we'll get some more information there. But I feel like they really just breezed over the whole, we clone Data into two twin sisters now. How, why, when, all that stuff. And I feel like they're never going to tell us now. Like, that's my feeling. Because I feel like they just gone past it. Also, 7 of 9, very excited to see 7 of 9 back. Although I kind of don't like how they glamorized her being a vigilante. And like, oh, I'm just going to go kill everybody. Oh, okay. Like there's like the Star Trek moral message of like, she was going to kill her and Picard's like, don't do it. And they're all like, don't do it. And she didn't do it. And it was like, oh, 7 of 9. She was on a dark path, but through Picard's influence, she kind of was going to turn things around. Right. And then she basically lies to him and leaves and kills the people anyway. I'm like, and we're supposed to be happy about that because they gave us a very brutal torture scene in the opening of the show to make you see what a bad person the villain is. And it was basically a scene out of one of the Saw movies. And I guess that was supposed to justify us being cool with 7 of 9 just killing everybody at the end. So those are some reasons why I didn't like this episode. So there you go. I mean, in a nutshell, those are kind of the big things that really detracted from my enjoyment of this episode.
Okay. Well, I felt like it was pretty slow moving.
As all of these episodes have been, to be honest.
Yes. I really liked, and I sort of put, these 3 topics together of these different stories. So I've got like 7's story, Bruce Maddox's story, and then Raffi's story that we'll get into more detail. But I felt like it was very episodic. Like, okay, we're going to Free Cloud. We went to Free Cloud and now we're leaving. And I'm like, okay, I sort of like episodic TV. So that part I really did enjoy. The opening, I've seen it multiple times and still I have missed the opening because I have to cover my eyes. It is too gory for me. Almost had to mute it because the sound effects are just as bad. It's like a horror movie. But yeah, we definitely do get that, well, she deserves to die. And that manipulation of it, I didn't really care for. But I'm going to have to disagree with you that 7, I never believed that she was going to not kill her. She was too hell-bent. And yeah, that's not really the Star Trek utopia that we're used to. But this series along with Discovery, it doesn't seem like we are in utopia anymore. That's what I'm learning from these two series.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, clearly, because it's hard to write utopia. It's easy to be like, everything's terrible. Because that's my kind of problem with all this new Star Trek, if you will. Because what set Star Trek apart for like 40 years was it was a hopeful, optimistic vision of the future.
Yeah.
Like, and you hear about Patrick Stewart talking about like, one of the big moving things that he experienced when he was doing TNG, like he got a letter from a police officer who said like, I see horrible things every day, but when I come home to feel better about life, I put on an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Right? It's a famous story that he's told many a time at a convention interview. Now, if you had a hard day and you saw a lot of bad stuff, would you put on this episode?
Oh my gosh, no.
So, which I don't like. Patrick Stewart, man, you're the executive producer of the show. Like, you seem to understand why people like Star Trek, but then you're like approving this stuff because clearly he has a very heavy creative hand in this. It was part of the deal to get him back, and I understand. Like, I understand if you're going to bring somebody back like Patrick Stewart, he's going to have a lot to say in the creative process here. But it's like, man, like this is not going to make anybody feel better. And, it's like in these new Star Treks, I see a lot of Firefly, Battlestar Galactica, things like that. And I like those shows. I do. But they're not Star Trek. Like, Star Trek is a different flavor of science fiction. And people say about the Roddenberry box and all these things, and no conflict between the characters. Like, it can be done. Like, it's harder to do, but it can be done. And I feel like, I feel like a lot of all this new Star Trek is just a more generic sci-fi with like, yeah, you have some Star Trek, proper nouns and characters in there, but the themes and the morals and the messages and it's not there like it was pretty much all the way through 2005. Because even though Enterprise was getting kind of derivative and Voyager at the end, maybe kind of boring, like there was always like, the kernel of what we're talking about here with Star Trek. And I feel like that's missed here in this new Star Trek. And this episode particularly exemplifies that, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, Seven is so cynical, and, she even admits to it. And, Picard thinks that there's still hope in the world. And I'm here to tell you there's not. And I didn't want to disillusion him. And, and then bam, she just disintegrates Bjayzl. Like, oh my gosh. Well, where's the hope?
How many episodes of Star Trek, and I especially think, the original series, people say Kirk shoots first and all that stuff. But you think about the original series, how many episodes where they end where like Kirk's going to kill someone and he doesn't do it? He's like, no, I'm going to choose not to kill today. All right, that's a big deal, right? And it's like, choose the better path. Picard always trying to get, Next Generation. He's the diplomat. He's always trying to find a non-violent solution, right? And yet this show celebrates violent solutions. Even at the end of last week's episode, they set up a whole scenario where like they're going to behead somebody, because it's like, and like that's to be celebrated. I'm like, no. So I get this is what they're going for, but I don't think that's what they should be going for. That's my opinion.
So we learn about the Fenris Rangers, and they apparently keep their money there. And now there's money, which don't get me started. So yeah, these are vigilantes, and they were saying that she joined them to go and protect, I guess, the worlds that the Federation had left behind. Protect them from who? I didn't understand this whole Fenris Rangers idea.
Well, there's a lot of world building and exposition that they have to give us because the galaxy is completely unrecognizable from when we left it at the end of the 24th century of Deep Space Nine and Voyager. But they don't give you enough. And so you're like, I don't understand. Like, where are the Klingons? Where are the Cardassians? Where are, because like these are major political powers. And I understand Romulus is, in Star Trek 09, it wasn't the Romulan sun, by the way. It was the different star. They never say it was the Romulan sun, but here it is. So, okay. So the Romulan sun goes supernova, and that's okay. But that they were one power out of like 15 giant powers, and the people